Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Buying a House in Japan, the world's number one Akia podcast. Today, your host, Joey, me, joined by co host Take,
What's
and we
up?
have another special guest with us. This is our judicial scrivener, Hiro san. A judicial scrivener is very complicated to foreigners. I will just come out and say that. And part of this episode, what we're trying to do is simplify that and really explain the purpose of a judicial scrivener in Japan when dealing with real estate transactions. So let's get the ball rolling. Welcome, Hiro, to the podcast.
Hi, I'm Hiro, Hiro Taka. Thank you guys for having me here.
Awesome, Hiro-san. Thanks for being here. And so we can get all the terms aligned. Again, I know judicial scrivener means like absolutely nothing to me as a English-speaking person. In Japan, it is called a shiho shoshi.
Shiho shoshi, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Not to be confused with gyosei shoshi. Sounds
Exactly.
similar.
Sounds
So they
similar,
do
but
different legal
completely
things, right?
different.
okay,
Completely
so
You're right.
gyosei shoshi is an administrative scrivener, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and
It's defined
shiho
like that.
shoshi is a judicial scrivener.
Additional
Uh,
skirt. Yeah.
Okay, Hiro, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What does a shiho shoshi or judicial scrivener do in the real estate transaction process?
We help clients with title transfer. And, when you purchase a property in Japan, you want to record the title transfer at the recorder's office. And there are required documents to do so. So I help with the clients preparing those documents and with the application to your title transfer.
Got it. So really
So
title transfer quarterback. Like you get the title transferred from point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
So you actually let me back. I got some questions about the actual registration process, but let me just back up because before this call with you, Hito, me and Take were talking and trying to go, okay, what's our understanding of what a shiho shoshi is? And you're trying to figure that out. And let me just run by a very quick scenario and you let me know if it sounds correct. But during the real estate process, the buyer of the house will send the money directly to the seller or to the real estate agent, and then the real estate agent sends it to the seller, and then the seller sends you the title deed to the house, and then you check that the money has been sent from buyer to seller and that the seller has sent you the title deed. The title deed checks out, everything looks okay, and then you submit the application for title transfer with the government. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And I also confirm the intention of the sale with the seller and perform a identity verification and with both sides, the seller and the buyer. Yeah.
Do you actually, before we go too far into it, I think we should gotta rewind the clock and talk a little bit about Hiro himself. Hiro, where do you live and how did you get into this shiho shoshi space?
I'm based in Nagoya, and some people might know where the city is right before Kyoto. Yeah, destination Nagoya. And
Famous for
Right.
chicken wings.
And misokatsu.
yeah,
Misokatsu.
Tebasaki.
and
Oh, yeah.
Yield.
We met Hiro a couple months ago in person and we had some like the best unagi I've had in my life. I'd say.
Best. Yeah.
Hiro, I loved your story when I asked you why you became a shiho shoshi. I love your response. I don't know if you're going to tell the same story, but I'd like to ask you that again. Why did you decide to become a judicial scrivener?
I was interested in loans, and I dropped out of college. My major was electronics, but I had zero interest in it. And so I was kind of looking for what to do at that time. And I was interested in the law because I know what drama about lawyer. And I thought, oh, God, it's so cool. Like it's hard to become an attorney because I gotta pass the bar exam in Japan, and it's super hard. So I I was looking for some career that is related to the law, legal stuff, and I found this job. And of course, you gotta pass the exam, and it was super hard for me, but I just tried. And
Did it? I
yeah,
heard that.
did it.
I heard the pass rate is so low. It's 3%.
Three,
Is
I
that
read
right?
3%.
3% to 5%. Yeah. Wow.
Okay, highly skilled here. Random question, Hero. Did you ever play Ace Attorney? It's like that one. It's like the Japanese video game with the attorney, like
I
the
remember that when we were in college. That was
Phoenix
like
Wright, Ace
What?
Attorney. I remember
It's
playing. I think
turning
video
on
game.
Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
the DS.
No, maybe not.
No.
Okay. Hero, how long have you been a Shiho Shoshi for, licensed for?
Like 26 years. Oh my God.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's too long.
Grandmaster here. And how long have you been dealing with foreigners? I know this is maybe a more newer side of the business for you, right?
Yeah. It's been a year. Like with foreign clients before, but it was completely different transaction. I help foreign clients to security deposits when they moved out of Portland. Those clients are living in Japan, not in a foreign country, of course. Yeah.
So it sounds like a judicial scrivener does many different things. You're helping people get their security deposits back,
Mhm.
performing title transfer applications with the government. What are the main things that a judicial scrivener does?
The main thing for me is title transfer.
Okay.
Okay.
But do other judicial scriveners specialize in different things, or they all mostly specialize with title transfer?
Mostly specialized in title transfer, but I
really?
also, help people to set up a company.
Oh, okay.
It's like LLC or Inc.
Or GK or KK.
GK or
That's
KK.
right. You
Mhm.
used a judicial scrivener to set up our company. That's right. Okay. And that judicial scrivener said they do not do real estate at all. And we asked several times and they said no.
Mhm.
That it's interesting. So it sounds like you pick a specialty as a
Mhm.
judicial scrivener.
Yep.
Okay, and your specialty, Hero, is recording deeds and working with foreigners at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Can you do a real estate transaction in Japan without using a Shiho Shoshi? That's the question we've got. Or do you always need a Shiho Shoshi in every transaction?
If you do on your own, you could do that.
Really?
But,
Pretty
What are
hard.
the risks? What are the risks if you do it
Do you
on
need
your
to
own?
know Japanese to could me and Joey record our own? Could we do it ourselves without you?
you could do that.
Really? Not that we
Yeah.
want to, but okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not mandatory to use the Shihoshishi.
What are the so I was doing some reading about judicial scriveners before this podcast recording, and it did talk a lot about the risks. So it said, yes, technically you don't need a judicial scrivener. You can, again, for a foreigner, probably you do because you're not going to be filing these documents yourself. For a Japanese person, technically you don't need a judicial scrivener, but there's risks involved.
Yeah.
You can get scammed much more easily. Do you believe that's true?
Yes, I do believe that it's true. Yeah, because we judicial scrivener do check the identity at the closing or before the closing and make sure there are no problem in both the parties' identity and the documentation. And and after we confirm that there's no problem and the seller can make the final payment there, and the payment is not a small amount of money, especially buyer wants to make sure there's no problem.
Okay, so while you can technically do it yourself, there are risks that you mentioned as far as like KYC, making sure you're not getting scammed. How
Mhm.
much paperwork is it? I like my assumption it's like you do a lot of paperwork to register to the deed. Can you talk a little bit about that, Hiro?
And yeah, I need some documents, and the crucial document is an affidavit. In Japan, we have address certificates called Juminshyo, but foreign nationals don't have the certificate, of course. And instead of the document, we prepare an affidavit, and that includes your legal name, address, and date of birth. And
Does that affidavit need to have your address on it? I know we've had some situations where people maybe don't have a US address, but they have a US passport or something. Any advice there?
mm, affidavit has to include the address.
What
Is that so? Just you mentioned that for a Japanese home
Mm,
buyer,
mm,
they use the Jumin,
mhm,
and because most and for a foreign buyer, they don't
mm,
have a Jumin-hyo document, so they get
mm,
this affidavit. Just a quick question about the Jumin-hyo. Is that what the Jumin-hyo is in Japan? It's essentially name, date of birth, and
mm.
address? Is that what it is?
Current address, and yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay, so
And the
essentially
Gmail includes those information.
we're trying to recreate the Jumin-hyo through the affidavit.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mm,
And here, let's say I'm a US resident, but my permanent address is in my house in Vietnam that I live. How do you deal with those kind of situations? Do you need an affidavit
mm,
for
Wait, you're saying you're a US resident, but your
US,
address
let's say
mhm.
US citizen,
Citizen.
but
but you
but
Yeah.
live in Vietnam.
but I
You're,
live in Vietnam. Do I get an affidavit for Vietnam in that
mhm.
situation? Or like
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah. You can get an affidavit to be notarized at a notary public in Vietnam.
So it's the address that's the
Yeah,
important part.
that's the
You want
address.
the
Mhm.
notary public to say, "Yes, you do live at this address." Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
and so to my understanding, you also need some IDs, right? So either or
Passport.
driver's license or both.
Both. I
Okay.
I want to get I need to submit a photocopy of your passport signed by you. Yeah.
Understood. And how
Mm,
long does that passport need to be valid for? Let's say my passport's expiring in 3 months, but my settlement date on the house is next week. Is that okay? Or are there any limitations around that?
it's totally okay.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as your passport is valid when you submitting the application to the recorder's office.
Sorry, just a question on that. So you get a copy of my passport and driver's license. Are those used by you, one, to check my identity, find my
Mhm.
identity, but you also submit those to the Japanese government when you're applying for the title transfer, or
Mhm.
no?
I submit only a photocopy of your passport, never
Okay.
driver's license. Mm,
Okay.
mm,
Got it. And here, I know you're being humble here and saying people can do this themselves, but I think as a foreigner, you can't read and write Japanese. This is very difficult of a
mhm.
thing to do without a Shiho Shoshi. Is that right, Hiro?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
I personally never want to attempt this.
Mhm,
And even if we did attempt it, I do believe we'd mess something up and it'd get
mhm.
returned. And I guess on that here, like how often do you go back and forth? I know you've been doing this for 20 plus years, but how often if you make a mistake on the title transfer, how often does that get pushed back to you or do you get it right every single time?
I wouldn't say never, but very few.
Okay. 5.
Do you ever, again, doing some reading about judicial scriveners, and it talked about the risks of not using one. Do you ever see different people in your industry, other judicial scriveners, acting a little bit scammy? Or have you ever heard of scams in your industry?
Yeah, there's a big scam like 5 or 6 years ago. The almost biggest real estate company got scammed. It's yeah, it's a big scam. And the show related to the story is on Netflix.
Tokyo's
One
Finland.
final. Yep.
Okay.
And was
Yeah.
this, sorry, was this related to the work of a judicial scrivener, how the
Yep.
scam happened? It was.
It was.
Do you know what,
Mhm.
is it easy to explain what happened or is it a complicated scam?
Scammers just created really good fake driver's license or something
Fake
some ID, fake ID.
okay.
Yeah. And they obtained certificate with the fake ID.
Okay.
And they sold someone else's property.
Property they did not own.
Did not own.
Oh, okay. So
And
So that,
big real estate company paid for it,
Oh.
but the title didn't be
Get transferred.
Yeah, it wasn't transferred to the buyer.
So I'm leading up to a question here with the scamming question. Sometimes I've heard when we've had clients trying to purchase a property, the seller's side says, no, you need to use my judicial scrivener. You can't use Hiro-san. You need to use my seller's side judicial scrivener. Is that, do you think that's okay? Do you think that's a red flag, something the customer should be concerned about? Or do you think normally it's fine?
It's normally fine, but they're on the seller's side, not on the buyer's side. They work for the seller, which means I don't think it's such a good idea to use seller's side. So,
Okay.
when possible, it's always better for us to bring you or our buyer side Shiho Shoshi to the table for a couple of different reasons. One, it's dealing with foreigners, but also just making sure that our guys on our side. But that makes sense. Every always going to want their Shiho Shoshi. We're going to want our Shiho Shoshi. In the US, it's similar to like escrow, where if I'm a seller side, I'm going to want to bring my escrow officer versus the seller buyers. But I think we found a way to elbow our way in sometimes, and I think we're quite persistent. Hey, are you open to working with foreigners? Use Hiro. He's foreigner specialist.
Yeah. Usually the seller side judicial scrivener doesn't know about how to help a foreigner buy. So we're just like, our guy does. Is you.
Yeah.
And Hiro, I know a lot of times you're chasing down customers, but do you have any advice for someone who's just starting the Akiya purchasing process, or what are some common mistakes or questions that you find with customers, especially foreigners, as you help them through the transaction process? Or what's one message you could give them before they start? I get this ready or something like that.
I ask my clients to send me their passport and driver's license to prepare necessary documents for their signatures. Yep. And I prepare all the documents in English for their understanding, because they don't want to sign documents that they have no idea what they say. So I prepare documents in English.
Okay. And then I know for some customers, you can also act as a power of attorney. Is that kind of correct? Or can you explain that a little bit to us?
They can hire me as their agent to act behalf of them to sign the real estate purchase agreement, making the final payment to the seller.
So in these cases where you do act as power attorney, I know we have some different relationships with some of our agents, but some of them, you will be the power of attorney, and then they will send the money to you in that case, right? And then send it to the seller on the day of settlement. Is that correct?
Yep.
Now, here, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. I hit you with the last week, but I want to talk a little about inheritance. I know inheritance is a complicated and different subject. And I guess the big question we get that I don't know how to answer is like, hey, I bought this Akiya in, let's say, in Nagoya, and I died. What happens if I die tomorrow? What happens to that property? Who inherits it? Can you explain what happens?
If you leave a will in the US, and if the will complies to the law in the US, you can use the will to for the title transfer for inheritance.
Okay. And is there like an inheritance tax? Or let's say this situation, I bought a $50,000 Akiya in Nagoya, I die, and I pass it on to my son. What kind of cost can they expect?
I don't think you need to be worried about inheritance tax, but just when you buy a house in Japan, the title transfer fees and recording taxes will
Drop the
pay for the
Okay.
Can I, sorry, just to make sure I understand. Let's say I inherit on a house in Japan from my parents, and my parents have a will that in the will it says I inherit the house. How would I go about actually making that title transfer happen in Japan? I would provide you with the will, or what sort of documents would you ask for?
You need to collect like your parents' death certificate and other certificates to show that you're the child of the parents, and plus the will, written in English, of course, and you need to translate those documents into Japanese.
Got it. And is it easy if someone buys under an US-based LLC or something for inheritance, or it's all basically the same?
Well, sorry, I don't.
So let's say I own the property, the Akiya, under my US-based LLC. Does the inheritance change at all in that situation?
Okay, you mean the property is under your company's name?
Yes.
Okay, then you don't need to change the name on the properties.
It just follows the US. Yeah. Okay. The LLC rule. So let's say me and Joey, we own fake LLC. We buy this Akiya. I get
Fake
hit.
LLC. What do you?
Placeholder name LLC. And I get hit by a bus in the LLC. If Joey if it's written into the LLC, Joey inherits that remaining. We don't need to change the title.
No, I think if I'm not mistaken, Hiro, you're saying that the company, because the company owns the LLC, if Take passes away, the company still owns the LLC, and it's ownership of the LLC that is now up for question. Do I inherit your shares? I guess there's no shares in an LLC, but do I inherit total control? No, not that the company keeps the property. It's about, do I get all the LLC or not?
Yeah, and that's a US-based LLC thing, not maybe a Japan thing.
I think. Is that understanding correct, Hiro?
What's else?
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a GK.
Oh, LLC. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a company. If a foreign company owns a property and the owner of the company dies, is there anything on the Japan side that changes? Or
you don't have to do anything. Yeah. The LLC name on the property, and if one of you pass away, nothing changed. Yeah.
Understood. Okay. And I'm curious, in a situation, let's say a US person buys an Akiya in Japan, they have no will or something, or they have no inheritors. Does it just go back to the government? How's that process work?
All right. Yeah, the property will go to the government if he or she has no
Inheritors.
Yeah, inheritance.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think from a Shiho Shoshi perspective, that was most of our questions. I think it's clear that you are the title transfer expert here. You work with foreigners, and we're going to send this podcast to a lot of folks that we have working with you. Hiro, just any advice or any observations that you've had about after helping so many foreigners buy in Japan? Any thoughts about it, about the Akiya space?
Should work with English-speaking real estate agents for a better understanding, and also they should work with me, the English-speaking. Yeah.
Okay. That's good advice. And I think something we try to say too, again, you can do a lot of this transaction process yourself, but working with not only one of maybe potentially our Akiyama direct agents and who will work with Hiro-san here, I think just makes the process a lot smoother, kind of leave it to the experts. It's well worth the headache, time, and money, in my opinion.
I would not attempt this myself, even speaking a little bit of Japanese and having purchased multiple properties already. It's not worth the trouble. Once you've seen, in my opinion, Japanese government documents and the requirements to fill them out, I don't think anyone is going to want to take this on unless bureaucracy is your thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Even Japanese buyers don't do the title transfer transaction on their own. It's too complicated to do.
Yep. Cool, Hiro. Thank you for being on the podcast today. I'm sure we'll have you back with some more questions. So if any listeners have any specific Shiho Shoshi specific questions, please shoot us an email. Again, Hiro, thank you for being on. We're very grateful you work with us and we're excited working with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining, Hiro.